keep everything moving. Next speaker is Josh Bolin with NABP. That's the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. It's all yours, Josh.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, and thank you. My name is Josh Bolin. I'm the Associate Executive Director for Federal Affairs and Strategy for the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. Next slide, please. NABP is a nonprofit association that protects the public health by assisting our member boards of pharmacy and offers programs that promote safe pharmacy practices for the benefit of patients. Boards of pharmacy regulate the practice of pharmacy and the prescription drug supply chain, and NABP is proud to support the boards in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, the District of Columbia, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Next slide, please. As an association, we provide a wide variety of services that provide support to our members as they work to protect the public health. From inspection support to license transfer, examinations, and accreditation programs, NABP supports every step of pharmacy compliance and helps promote delivery of reliable healthcare across the country. Next slide, please. On behalf of our member boards of pharmacy, NABP would like to thank the FDA for their continued communication and collaboration on the implementation of the DSCSA. Through FDA's participation in executive officer webinars, interactive forums, and through the hosting of the annual intergovernmental meeting, FDA has kept the DSCSA on the radar of the state regulatory community. In particular, this has been helpful in ensuring that states understand aspects of Section 585 and the Uniform National Policy, which should help avoid the patchwork of state regulation that was referenced earlier. We look forward to continuing the dialogue and collaboration. As implementation of the electronic and interoperable system has progressed, members of the supply chain and solution providers have driven the majority of the implementation thus far, and understandably. However, NABP believes that it's important that the state regulatory perspective is considered as implementation proceeds. So we've increased our interactions with our membership, as well as members of the supply chain and other stakeholders on implementation. In September and October, NABP convened groups of state regulators to discuss implementation of DSCSA. The groups focused on how regulators will assess trading partner compliance with DSCSA and how they'll be able to communicate with trading partners within the electronic interoperable system when they conduct suspect or illegitimate product investigations. Next slide, please. Participants in those workshops identified several areas for NABP to support state regulators and members of the supply chain with DSCSA implementation. First, NABP will work with associations and stakeholders that represent the pharmacy community to help develop clear and accurate guidance and tools for DSCSA compliance. Second, NABP will equip its member boards with guidance that can be used to educate their licensees, and will work with its member boards to develop uniform guidelines and tools that they can use to assess DSCSA compliance that are in line with the Uniform National Policy. Next slide, please. Finally, to facilitate regulator requests for information from trading partners, NABP will develop a network to help facilitate interoperability. The primary goal of the network is to facilitate regulator requests for information necessary to fulfill their regulatory responsibilities, and doing so in a manner that's consistent with DSCSA. During these discussions, regulators identified a number of use cases where this type of network would help facilitate those investigations. For example, product tracing or verification requests for a suspect or illegitimate product, alerts about fraudulent activity, product recalls, and also just assessing a trading partner's compliance with DSCSA during an inspection or an audit. In building the network, NABP will leverage the existing connections that we already have with our member boards of pharmacy, as well as our underlying data infrastructure. To that end, NABP maintains eProfile Connect, which is a central services hub utilized by NABP's member boards of pharmacy that assist them in performing their daily regulatory responsibilities. NABP Profile Connect facilitates the sharing of licensing, disciplinary, and other regulatory data for over 1 million licensees, ranging from individual practitioners to pharmacies to wholesale distributors and other regulated facilities. Within eProfile Connect, NABP has also built the information sharing network that's used by the boards and the FDA to collect, manage, and exchange data pertaining to state licensed pharmacies engaged in human drug compounding. Relatedly, in 2011, NABP developed an interstate data sharing hub for prescription drug monitoring programs that today connects 52 PDMPs, processes 865 million transactions per month, and it integrates the data into a myriad pharmacy and EHR systems across the country and in real time. Given the infrastructure and connectivity already in place via eProfile Connect, NABP is proposing that we would add functionality that would help facilitate regulator requests for transaction information from trading partners. In establishing this network, NABP does not intend to replace or disrupt any of the ongoing discussion amongst trading partners, solution providers, or other stakeholders. Our intent is to ensure that the state regulatory community has a voice in integrating DSCSA requirements into a practical implementation strategy and to provide the appropriate tools necessary to carry out their mission to protect the public. Based on our conversations with our members, with industry, and other stakeholders, we believe the network should be 1, consistent with uniform national policy and FDA guidance, 2, create a uniform request and response standard for state regulators that mirrors DSCSA requirements and the FDA guidance, 3, creates a singular consolidated source for state regulator and trading partner communication, 4, ensures that only authorized regulators can make requests, and finally, 5, and perhaps most importantly, protects the confidentiality and proprietary information. Through the network, state regulators should see increased efficiency in their inspections and investigations and will be able to more rapidly respond to dangerous products that pose a threat to patient safety. Trading partners should also see a reduction in manual regulator requests and will avoid having to support 50 plus different methodologies for handling regulator requests and responses. Next slide, please. NABP has been actively following industry's efforts to align DSCSA requirements and will work with existing stakeholder groups such as the Partnership for DSCSA Governance, GS1, and others to ensure that the network adheres to established standards and to provide input into ongoing discussions to ensure alignment. As the November 2023 deadline is fast approaching, we recognize that this will most likely be a tiered or stepped process. And therefore, we believe that it's important to focus on those critical use cases and functions that do the most to protect patients and to ensure the integrity of the supply chain. In December, NABP will kick off a series of workshops with regulators, trading partners, including small dispensers, and other solution providers to identify those critical patient safety use cases, develop additional business requirements, and to ensure alignment around a set of uniform requests and responses for regulators. And then we'll intend to launch pilots shortly thereafter. Next slide, please. As part of establishing the network, NABP will also enhance its own credentialing processes to ensure that only authorized requesters or only authorized regulators are able to request information from appropriate trading partners. Establishing this trust framework will also help protect proprietary data and limit access only to those that are authorized to receive it. By establishing this network, NABP also believes that there's an opportunity to simplify the current thought process around authorized trading partner credentialing and to reduce barriers to entry, particularly for small dispensers, by leveraging the existing infrastructure and data operations that NABP already has in place and that is already in use by state regulators. Despite the progress that the regulatory community and the supply chain have made under the currently enacted portions of the DSCSA, counterfeit product continues to infiltrate inside and outside the legitimate supply chain. Implementation of the electronic interoperable system under DSCSA is a critical step in protecting our nation's prescription drug supply and the patients that it serves. Since 1904, NABP's mission has been to assist our member boards in finding solutions to vast public health and safety threats and to solving big challenges. And this DSCSA implementation is certainly a big challenge. NABP is committed to working with the regulatory community, members of the supply chain, and other stakeholders to help solve that challenge and to meet our collective goal of ensuring a safe and secure prescription drug supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Got our next speaker, Jordan Dunkoff from Softgroup. It's all yours.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Dunkoff, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives at Softgroup. Next slide, please. Few words about Softgroup. We are a company based in Europe and delivering end-to-end traceability solutions to the pharmaceutical industry worldwide. We are in the business for more than 17 years, and we have a significant portfolio of knowledge and solutions covering a wide variety of scenarios. Being the trusting provider of many participants along the pharmaceutical supply chain, we are delivering multiple connections to central repository hubs and supporting the whole process from level 1, marking of the unique pack, to level 5, which is the transfer of relevant data between the central repositories and independent third-party systems. We have the experience of delivering many solutions with different data transfer specific for different levels of stakeholders, such as producers, wholesalers, trading partners, regulatory bodies, and the end users all over the world. During the last few years, we're helping our clients to achieve compliance with DSCSA and meet the latest regulations in the United States. We are compliant with more than 20 national systems, and we're constantly evolving along with the evolving regulations. Furthermore, we are certified GIS1 partner, certified gateway provider for the European system MVO, trusted partner of the national system in Bulgaria, and revalidated solution provider of the Russian system MDLP. We have been involved also in the building of some national systems, and we are ready to share with you the knowledge acquired also from this perspective. Next slide, please. We will stick to the proposed agenda by the organizers of this event, and we will share some key messages on the different topics during the presentation. Next slide, please. At the beginning, let's point on some major elements of the system. Transaction information and transaction statement exchange in a secure electronic manner will increase the overall level of security and optimization of the production and logistics. The aggregation will help the participants along the supply chain to easily manage the exchange of products and relevant data in the system. It will provide also a higher level of security and marking at the same time the single pack and the collective pack for the same product. Physical security features as tamper evidence, coloring-based marking, and why not physical tracking solutions as RFID tags or similar would be highly recommended by us. Crucial points regarding the operation of the system: the centralized authorization, the roles themselves need to be strictly defined in advance and not mixed up further, and transfer of confidential information should be limited only to the relevant stakeholder groups. The situation could be challengeable because at the same time some stakeholders could be part of different groups. Our insight here is that large volumes of data for big batches, including all of the product and shipping info, as well as serialization data, is a challenge to overcome during the initial upload and further verification or status update. For example, last year, Russian system had some issues, especially with the initial upload of original data from producers for large volumes. Next slide, please. The system should be designed in a way that will ease the onboarding of new and especially smaller players in a structured and cost-effective way. Thus, without compromising the security levels required, without compromising the control and regulatory process, but at the same time allowing the change of solution provider and avoiding lock-in situations. And we met some from our experience in the European Union. Our key insight on the system structure would be that the synchronization between multiple databases and prompt and sequential system response is the essential goal to achieve. The onboarding procedures should be standardized for every participant along the value chain, and the type of registration further changeable when the situation changes. Next slide. Serialized transaction information and data exchange is a process that is pretty much clear, and I would like to point on some of the key moments in the serial number generation and aggregation process. Marking of the same product manufactured by 2 or more producers should avoid any risk of unique identifiers duplications. Serial number generation should include strict rules for uniqueness. The reworking of a shipping container should be possible to a multiple number of locations, thus providing more flexibility to the whole distribution process. Of course, this is strictly bound to the specific user rights in the system for the different user roles, not forgetting that some of the stakeholders could have more than one actor role. Our insight is that reworking of a collective unit at any time during the entire product life cycle without damaging the aggregation data will provide flexibility to all supply chain participants during the process. Next slide. The gathering of relevant product tracing information should achieve the following: enhancing security data exchange of pharma distribution supply chain, continuous access to product location and property information, physical location feature is also recommended, and general complex and interconnected database for protecting manufacturers, brands, profits, patient security in compliance with FDA regulations. Once again, we would like to stress on the fact that only public and non-sensitive data should be transmitted along the supply chain, and the private data should be available only to the data owner and government authorities. Next slide, please. While talking of verification, it is essential to mention some key aspects of the process. The need of standardized verification and alerts at any stage of the supply chain process in terms of data format and product statuses. The alerts management process also. When an alert in the system is identified, the process of managing it and the duties of every participant should be clearly defined from the beginning. Alerts must be categorized and transferred to the right stakeholder or group of stakeholders using a clear predefined algorithm. The linked events, which represent an event linked to a specific alert or series of linked alerts, should be correctly managed and analyzed as an entity, not as a single event. From our experience, the verification process must be accessible for everybody throughout the supply chain, and it should be vendor-neutral process, so multiple devices, interfaces, and applications should provide different participants with the relevant information at any stage. Next slide, please. What is our readiness as a solution provider? Softgroup has a significant experience in the traceability process. I would identify the initial marking and verification process along with the data reporting as the easiest step to implement. Next step would be achieving of data interoperability, as already mentioned from many previous speakers. Stepping on a common standard and unified requirements will ease the process. The main challenge will be interconnection between the different databases and interfacing between systems. However, having in mind the experience from other markets, the task is achievable with appropriate time for planning and development. Our insight on the topic would be that mark and verification, interfacing, coding, and communication between different systems should be based on common, widely adopted standards. Next slide, please. In conclusion, I would say that track and trace is a complex matter, especially with so many different regulations around the world. However, we can step on the lessons learned from them, build a robust and integral system, and achieve government's main purpose: efficient method combating drug counterfeiting. New requirements come into force almost every day, aim to achieve the enhancement of drug distribution security. And next slide. That would be all from us. Thank you for your attention, and I'm at your disposal if you have any additional questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Next presenter is LSPEDIA and Ria Chow.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make the remarks for enhanced drug distribution security at a package level under the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, and also specifically in Section 4, Segment B, C, and D, as well as trading partner readiness. Dear panelists, speakers, and colleagues, my name is Ria Chow. I'm the CEO of LSPEDIA. LSPEDIA is a SaaS solution provider in the pharmaceutical industry. Our customers are CMOs, manufacturers, wholesalers, dispensers, and healthcare providers. And they use LSPEDIA solutions to package, move, verify, trace, serialize the products in the supply chain, meeting DSCSA and EDDS compliance. Next, please. I want to acknowledge that FDA's draft guidance document published recently has been a great assistance and provided clarity to our customers and their operations. And I also want to acknowledge all FDA's guidance documents published prior, and community engagements and industry engagements like today are very, very welcomed by the industry, by us, and also by our customers. Pharmaceutical business is obviously very complex. Everything needs to just go right for the business to run smoothly. We had run some polls during our most recent webinars. And one of the polls we ran, because we wanted to know what are the dominant pain points for the pharma companies, because pain drives action, and then action drives DSCSA implementation. So we put some questions out there, and you can see the result shows the biggest driver for the action is indeed FDA. So the audience in this poll were very concerned. Their biggest concern was compliance gaps, and that kept them awake at night. And that was followed by supply chain issues. As we are all very aware, post-COVID-19 lockdowns, there's a wide spread of supply chain issues. And in the pharmaceutical industry as well, we've seen supply chain interruptions already in the supply side and transportation side. And certainly working toward the DSCSA 2023 requirements, what we want to do is really eliminate those risks. We also put questions indicated, whether work-life balance would also be a big pain point for them, together with labor shortage, and finally customer satisfaction. So many speakers before me, including Brett Pine from Smith's Drug Company, Marianne Nielsen from Cardinal, and Scott Mooney from McKesson, all spoke about their continuous work and efforts of supplier communications. So based on those communications and the continuous efforts to work with suppliers, we see that we did have that question at the end, where you can see the 17.65%. So those are customer satisfaction, right? The customer reaching out to suppliers, and then suppliers respond and taking action based on what customer had asked them. So from there, we see that the people that cared about their customers are, well, not that they don't care, but that bubbled up to the top of their issue list is only 17%. So from this perspective, we do want to acknowledge that FDA and the work FDA is doing is very, very effective. In addition to the efforts and work from the industry, from the stakeholder themselves, we do need FDA to be in the continuous communication with the industry, and to continue to remind everyone that requirement is a mandatory for the pharmaceutical business, and we do need to have that guidance laid out clear, so we can all follow that instruction to design our operation and implement solutions we need. Next, please. So another live poll showed, so we asked again, from enhanced security perspective, what is the most challenge for the EPCIS data exchange? And 60% said getting good data from their suppliers. So getting good data from the sender, right? So it could be the CMO to the manufacturer to the wholesaler. So getting good data is the biggest challenge. And so this leads me to my remarks on enhanced drugs distribution security, section 4. Next slide, please. LSPEDIA appreciates the details and the clarity from the draft guidance. It calls attention to data quality. And that's exactly what the previous slide had indicated, that the biggest challenge in the supply chain right now for EPCIS data exchange is getting good data, right? So this guidance calls out the data quality and also quality control, right? So the second bullet point there, the quality control, the physical product matching the data, and also data remediation. The last bullet calls out the sender for clerical errors. The enhanced security requires the sender to correct those clerical errors. So I think all these is absolutely essential and necessary for everyone in this industry, and that it's not just the dispensers or distributors, the manufacturers as well. And I think manufacturers were in the forefront of serialization, and they understand very well the pain of not getting the good data from their CMO partners. So we really appreciate FDA to do the work and do the research to come up with the guidance in this guidance document. We think it's very helpful in regards to communicating with upstream trading partners and educating upstream trading partners of their responsibility of providing good data and their responsibility of data quality. Next, please. Operationally, when the receiver gets good data from their suppliers, the products get received and stocked, right? That's the happy path. We all want to do this all day long. However, when there, as you see, I have later data that shows how much, how hard it is to get good data, right? So otherwise, the products get piled up at the receiving dock. Michelle Davison from Walgreens said they can't wait for 3 days for that data to get corrected, right? And it is true for almost anyone who runs a warehouse. It can be the 3PL, can be the distributor, can be the manufacturer. There's just simply not enough room at the receiving dock to hold the product. Even though I hear that 3 days is not enough time, right? So for the companies who send data with clerical error, is 3 days enough time? But on the receiving side, do you have 3 days? Do you have space to hold 3 days worth of products there? So this is going to be a challenge for everyone, and certainly LSPEDIA is in the center of providing that technology to both the senders and receivers, so they can be smooth data quality and data remediation to resolve this issue. So where do they put the product if the product is going to accumulate there, right? So can they put in quarantine? Do they have enough quarantine space to hold these products? And so I think it's an urgent matter for all of us to think about and then address data quality and from the very source of where the data is generated. Next slide, please. So we had run some data analytics. We actually found that 36% of the EPCIS data exchange failed initially in the production system. So this is already after the data exchange has been tested between the trading partners in a test system, and they moved to a production system. So from there in the production system, still 36% EPCIS data fails initially. So what does that mean? So this means to us is that the errors that were fixed in the test can resurface in production, and also errors that were never seen in test can also appear in production system. Again, a lot of speakers ahead of me talked about it takes them 3 to 8 weeks to onboard a manufacturer, right? And then from manufacturer perspective, to onboard a CMO, it takes much longer, right? I think that's all acknowledged by our trading partners, that every single trading partner onboarding is a cycle of itself. Why does it take so long? Because these errors. If it's a straight path, if everything's good, then it doesn't take 3 to 8 weeks, right? So for those who experienced ASN errors, and that happens every day, EPCIS errors are exponentially complex. So So here, what I want to point out is this draft guidance really brought to the surface where data quality is something that we absolutely need to address, because a lot of companies out there that hasn't started on this path, they may not really know about all this, and all this is through experience, right? So if you don't do it, you don't know what's involved. Next, please. And the
Hi,
reason-
Ria. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to give you the 2-minute warning. You got 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Okay. Let's advance to the next slide, please. Okay. So this picture I borrowed from Adam Zerner's blog published on July 2021. And I think those of us who are here today, we have a more objective view of the EPCS onboarding, right? The reality that's on the bottom of the picture. So my concern certainly are the trading partners who are not here today, or who are not attending or have not attended any industry meetings, and they are not aware of the path that they will encounter. And then the path they will encounter certainly has obstacles and the path bends, right? And so next slide, please. So this just means the reality really demands a lot of work from all of us, because we do need to address EPCS onboarding. We need to address the obstacles, we need to address the errors, and we need to find solutions. And speakers ahead of me already talked about projections of additional resources, technologies, etc. So here, I encourage everyone to, next slide, please, to plan, right? Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. We encourage everyone to plan, to execute, and then to run on their execution, to onboard the suppliers, customers, talking to suppliers and customers and solution providers like LSPEDIA. Next, please. And this is where I conclude. So based on our poll in October 26th, this is very recent. We are getting the information back from the industry, where majority of the companies that are planning to complete this work in 2022, but we still have 13% that's thinking about planning this for 2023, and that may already be too late. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Connie and the FDA panel for any questions for the previous speakers.
Hi, great. Thank you to the group of speakers. I do have, I'll start with one question here. It's directed towards Josh at NABP. Not sure if you have this information yet, or maybe it'll be upcoming through your workshops, but wondering, we've heard a lot today and in previous venues and meetings and comments about EPCIS data. So do you foresee any issues with state regulators dealing with EPCIS data?
Thank you, Connie. Based on the discussions that we've had thus far with our initial meetings, we've sort of laid out what they can expect within those data elements. So that there hasn't been any significant concern or questions raised, but that's something that we can definitely flag for our next meetings with the regulators.
Thank you. And I will just poll my FDA colleagues to see if there are any additional questions. All right, I do have one for is it Jordan or Raya, in terms of, as you guys are representing solution providers, if you had to, I know you presented some information based on your surveys, but if you had to pick one issue what do you think would be, what is the the most significant challenge in terms of implementing sort of interoperability within here in the United States across the pharmaceutical supply chain?
I can speak on that. So that's also one of the questions we asked, what is the most challenge? And that is getting good data as far as the EPCS product tracing perspective. But from on a greater level, I mean, the people who are saying getting good data, they are already getting data, right? So I think the greater challenge is how do we really get everyone to be involved. I think that is the biggest challenge, and that's where I think FDA is going to be most effective. And I also encourage FDA to we as LSPEDIA and our customers, we do a lot of communications with the people we can reach, right? So I think it takes efforts for all of us to work together, and I encourage FDA to do more of this and to also work with us to reach more audiences. I think there's just by looking at the data we collected so far, I think 2/3 of the companies out there are still not taking any actions, and that's the biggest concern.
Yes, and in our opinion, the most challenging part will be, of course, the interconnection between the different databases. So we think that the communication and the building of the workflows between different systems should be done on different stages. Going into that direction, we think that we need to divide some of the operation and constantly upgrade the next levels of data exchange, and that will definitely give us the solid base and step by step achieve the final target. So, sorry.
Thank you. I want to do a last call to my FDA colleagues. Any questions for this session panel? Okay, seeing none. Dan, I'll turn it over to you. I think we might have another break.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Connie. Yes, I believe our last break of the day. We'll give you back a half hour to catch up on some things, and we will come back at 3 o'clock for the open comments session. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We now want to begin our open comments session. These are folks who signed up today during the meeting for 5-minute slots to speak. And we've got 3 speakers who signed up. So if all goes as scheduled here, we might be ending the meeting a little early, maybe 15 minutes or so. With that, let's go ahead and get started with our first speaker, and that is Matt Sample at AmerisourceBergen. It's all yours, Matt.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Thanks to the FDA for giving me the opportunity to speak here for 5 minutes. They just want to hit on really 2 points here. I don't want to repeat a lot of what my peers said. AmerisourceBergen's in violent agreement with a lot of what was covered earlier, both by the wholesaling community as well as the manufacturers and the dispensing communities. So I want to take an opportunity to really summarize and think about what 2023 really means to us. We've got 600 some odd manufacturers we have to onboard, and you heard from Scott Moody the numbers that he's dealing with in Cardinal Health. We have 60,000 dispensers that we have to work with and onboard to either the use of our tools EPSIS data exchange. And they compound that, technology aside, there's nothing wrong with EPSIS. It works. We've proved that. The challenges we are faced with are engagement. And so when I look at the next 2 years and 11 days, we have a lot of work to do to hit the fundamentals of transaction information exchange using EPSIS, and very concerned with anything above and beyond being able to do that. And to speak honestly, again, given the engagement we're at right now, the fact we have 200 some odd people on this, and there are well over, 250,000 trading partners in the supply chain. I think a little bit of splash in the face reality is, bare minimum might be extremely challenging to hit. So I did just want to summarize the concerns of everybody on this call to kind of make that statement that the bare minimum is certainly a Herculean task we're all leaning hard into. The second, and this is more to address Connie's question around the ask for clarity around the guidance. I think there's still 2 points that concern myself, both from a clarity and feasibility perspective. I think this idea of the communication hub that was visualized earlier today and its traceability, and then even with the addition of what Josh brought up with NABP, there is no physical known entity to any of the trading partners of this hub or a system for us to connect to. And just given the pure practicality of what it would take to do that, given our past experience with BRS and other such systems, all those arrows talking to the communication hub require standards. They require onboarding. And again, when you look at the volume of trading partners, that is a Herculean task that I truthfully do not think can get accomplished in the short, again, 2 years and 11 days that we have left. So certainly concern there, just no clarification around what that is, no technical specs, no engagement. I do appreciate Josh at least laying out a plan to engage the industry. Not sure that's even aggressive enough to hit the target he was even focusing on. So one comment there. And the second comment on the guidance really is around reconciliation and exception resolution. This really needs, especially reconciliation, really needs to be left up to the trading partner themselves on how they make sure that they have the data matches the product. And then the resolution, it's certainly too soon to talk about how long it takes to resolve something, because I can tell you in doing an exceptions pilot in 2017, there's a lot we still don't know about exceptions. And there are exceptions that we will not be able to resolve due to aggregation. So putting an arbitrary 3-day deadline into a guidance at this point is really, really very much premature. But I think we need to lean into that more and have an industry conversation on exceptions. I move 900 million units a year. That's single units, not cases. If we have aggregation issues that I know we will not be able to quickly reconcile, we are talking about a lot of good, viable product that will not make it to the patient. And the one thing I did agree with what Pharma said is we are going to have to balance patient access, patient safety, and secure supply chain risk when we talk about certain trading partner situations, such as a direct purchase environment. And so I would encourage the FDA that we start leaning into that conversation and update that guidance to more reflect what the industry feels is actually accomplishable. So with that, I appreciate the 4 minutes to speak.
Great, thank you, Matt. Next speaker we have from Global Pharma Consulting, Carl Asatura. Sorry, Carl, if I messed up your last name.
Dan, that's perfect.
Okay.
My name is Carl James Achatura. I'm honored to participate today with all the outstanding and dedicated people that I've heard from today. My career started in the pharma supply chain. I was blessed early on to work in big pharma in the innovative companies, Merck, Pfizer, Roche, and Bristol Myers. I learned the business and then I jumped into small pharma. So it's a shock when you leave the nest of big pharma and go into small pharma, and suddenly all those resources that you had to tap into on a subject like DSCSA are not there. And you're actually emptying your own trash bin. You're having to wear many hats. So today I want to speak on behalf of Global Pharma Consulting, which basically I set up to work with smaller players, emergent pharma companies, and they also have to deal with DSCSA. And for them, it seems like a mountain at times. I have CEOs asking, why do we have to do this? What do we really want to get out of this? And I always answer, better visibility, better security of product. So like Alyssa Bernstein, I too have kind of retired with 40 years in pharma. but I just can't seem to leave all these opportunities. And I'm excited about being there for November 2023. So I found in my career, nothing is more fulfilling than helping patients. And the culmination of that is always in new product launches. So my last 25 years have been new product launches in emergent pharma. And that's a very challenging environment. So I would say that FDA and industry are to be applauded for all the great contributions that have come from big and small pharma as we've dealt with the COVID pandemic challenges. It's really a privilege, despite the pandemic, to see us all have bandwidth somehow to be problem solving together and still trying to drive forward on this DSCSA path. I respect everyone at FDA, industry, who's gotten into the weeds, as Dave Mason kind of said it. It's not easy to be proactive on what is certainly at times the bleeding edge of DSCSA implementation. But and I think many of the people today probably don't get appropriately appreciated. Having said that, I want to be sure that we take special care of new product launches. So I started early in my career at Pfizer and Roche with breakthrough therapies in the 1990s. Pfizer launched Iflucan into the AIDS epidemic for systemic fungal infections. Roche launched Inverase, the first protease inhibitor. We got that into the clinics in 24 hours. Roche was working hand in hand with the wholesalers. There was a great partnership. That initiative won the Diana Award. So FDA and HWDA do a remarkable job in expediting approval and launch of breakthrough therapies. Learned it through the AIDS epidemic. So in those days, lives needed to be saved and patients were front and center. And ACT UP was chaining itself to Pfizer headquarters. It was chaining itself to the gates outside the Roche complex. ACT UP understood patient advocacy and brought it forward in a very fundamental way. And so we all need to remember, patients are what we're here for. Life-saving in patient advocacy is even more important. And Janet Woodcock created the patient-focused drug development program and I first became acquainted with it in 2017, 2018. And I thought this is what is really going to make a difference. And so I refocused. As Dave Mason put it, in the DSCSA world, we have to deliver not only product, but data. And that's a big change. So think about the orphan drug breakthrough therapy products. They're coming out of small emerging companies with limited resources. They may be overseas innovators that have no exposure to DSCSA. They're coming in and they're setting up virtual operations. They're working through CMOs, through 3PLs, through service providers. So this idea that we're going to onboard people in 4 to 6 weeks is not applicable to these kinds of emerging companies and their products. And so we have to think about how do we support them with resources? How do we address the much longer time to implement for smaller companies? The end-to-end testing that we talk about being 4 weeks, it's 3 months for small companies. So one thought here is, just to close, is thinking about the safety net for new product introductions and small emergent companies with breakthrough products. I think it's something that we can think about. We saw big disruptions in the COVID-19 pandemic for some of the NDAs that are out there, the mission critical inspections that couldn't be done. So I think we have to think about that as we go into 2023. And I thank you.
Great, thank you, Carl. And next, we have our last speaker for the open comment session, Swami Subramanian. I hope I got that right. I apologize if I didn't. From Michigan State University. Go Spartans.
Hey, yep. Thanks, Dan. It's a Swami. And thank you. Good afternoon, all, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity for the FDA team. So before I jump into my comments, a quick thing about AXIA and MSU. AXIA is a Value Chain Innovation Center from Michigan State University. And most of you know that MSU is the #1 supply chain and the best school of packaging. And of course, we have a brand protection center to deal with all the counterfeiting and product diversion. So we are very much appropriate to be in this kind of a dialogues. So it's kind of a 3 major things. So we noticed that I would like to highlight here. The first one is a counterfeiting. That is a big thing. Certainly the DSCSA, the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, is aimed to address the issues in the pharma supply chain. So secure the drug chain with a focus on patient safety is a great transformational effort. While we appreciate the steps taken to make the supply chain more robust, we have noticed a needed leap in technology to achieve the ultimate benefits of this act. So the 3 problems is counterfeiting, then expensive labor and manual errors, and scaling and automation. So 3 major things we would like to highlight here. So the counterfeiting with the current 2D barcoded technology. So it's unfortunately, they won't be able to say that the product is counterfeited because those barcoded labels can be reprinted, they can be copied. So it is, they can be, the counterfeited products can be masked with a genuine kind of, it's kind of really, there is no technology to really say this is a counterfeited product. So to achieve the objectives, a more comprehensive solution is required to ensure the counterfeit products are not allowed to enter the supply chain. To do that, an end-to-end supply chain must have an ability to verify the authenticity of the products at any point within the supply chain. So the E2E, visibility, and the direct end user feedback are essential for traceability. So that's one. Then coming to expensive labor and manual errors. So that's kind of already one of the Cardinal Health representative mentioned about that. It's a 15% increase in labor because it's using those kind of a 2D barcodes. It's like an individual scanning, like it's much expensive. It's a time cost. And if you look at in the future, it's really, it's going to be maybe today, it's maybe a very few packages of the people will be using. But if you think, when it comes to a more labor expensive process, better we need to have a better integrated solution. So maybe it's beyond barcode, how the solution could be. And also, if we think about the scaling and automation, so it's a standard barcode doesn't allow the scanning machines to read multiple products in one time. So it's kind of, again, it going with the individual scanning. So to really solve this challenge, industry should seek to integrate new technologies to supplement barcoded technology as underpinning a technology for electronic interoperable systems to make the pharma supply chain more robust and tamper-proof. So with that, like the AXIA, it's a value chain center with the backbone of supply chain. So we are working on integration of IoT, Internet of Things, into the packaging, provides a necessary visibility and traceability. So of course, the wireless sensor networks, near field communication, UHF RFID technology, these are all well known as the major components of IoT in the supply chain segment. Automated online data streaming with reduced workforce are bigger benefits of this approach. Also, the real-time traceability ensures authenticity and product quality. So UHF are dual frequency tagged item from the manufacturer facility may address the counterfeiting, manual errors, operation and scale, and standardization issues. So AXIA has realized there is a need for a neutral third party and academic force to support the FDA efforts. So AXIA has started a healthcare supply chain consortium So at this moment, the moonshot of the FK is the Fresenius Kabi. They are going to have an RFID tag, individual item level things. And also we have received much interest from some of the other leading brand owners, the drug manufacturers. And FK, then GS1 and the IoT solution provider, they all joined Axia Supply Chain Consortium. And certainly we believe that we want to support the community, and Axia is a nonprofit body too. So we want to help that, and we would like to certainly the FDA efforts are, as I said at the beginning, it's a great transformational. We would like to support the industry, and we have a dedicated test facility, and also like how can we help the online data streaming, and to really help an open and interoperable system. With that, like really, we will be glad and happy to engage the team, whether it's the government agencies or the drug manufacturer or distributor or a solution provider. We would like to bring everybody, and how as an academic force, we can help resolve, or maybe we can do a pilot or demo to really keep things as what FDA's vision to help the nation and the community. So once again, thank to FDA for this wonderful opportunity on behalf of Axia Institute MSU.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And with that, Connie, it's back to you and the panel for any questions.
Thank you to those that volunteered to speak during our open comment session. I am polling my panelists here just to see if there's anything, and while they are responding to me, covered several topics kind of in this open session. So I think let's see if we can narrow the questions here. Give me 1 second. We'll just remind, in terms of the last speaker, you spoke about other technologies, and certainly I think the agency has to keep in mind advances in technology. However, the current requirements do require the two-dimensional data matrix barcode, which is why implementation has been sort of full force in implementing the product identifier in both human readable and in the machine readable format of a 2D data matrix barcode currently. So just a reminder of that piece of information. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions. For those attendees, if there is something that you feel you want to provide information to FDA, we encourage you to consider submitting your comments into our public docket for anything that was discussed at this public meeting. And I will turn it back over to Dan. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Connie. We're in the home stretch. Lee Verbois is going to close it out for some closing remarks. Lee is our director at ODSER, the Office of Drug Security, Integrity, and Response here at CEDAR in our Office of Compliance. Lee, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you to our speakers, our panelists, and to those who helped organize this meeting. Also, thank you to everyone for staying with us for the full day of information sharing on the enhanced drug distribution and discussion of DSCSA requirements. Today, we heard from several stakeholders about how implementation of the 2023 enhanced system requirements is progressing across the pharmaceutical distribution supply chain. We know this is a large undertaking to get to the enhanced system, but we're confident that together we will get there. And the imperative is together. Coming together to solicit information is one step that gets us there. Trading partners and others have come so far and have implemented product tracing and verification at the lot level, and we have product in the supply chain with product identifiers on them. FDA will continue to align and work with members of the supply chain to build the enhanced system by 2023. We are statutorily mandated to do this. If you could advance the slides, please. You should know that FDA is committed to protecting the supply chain, and I'm reinforcing that commitment. We work to prevent harmful drugs from entering the supply chain, detect harmful drugs if they enter the supply chain, and respond rapidly when they are found. Supply chain integrity and security is so important to ensure that medicines are handled properly and that illegitimate products do not make their way into our supply chains. US patients must have safe, effective, and high-quality drugs, and DSCSA helps us prevent illegitimate products from reaching patients, better detect illegitimate products from supply chains, and respond in that rapid manner that I just mentioned. Thanks to those, again, who chose to speak at today's meeting and to share their current learnings and expected challenges as they move forward. It's what's going to help us make sure that we best understand how to implement. Can you advance to the next slide, please? We know we covered a lot of information today. Oh, I'm sorry, could you go back? You were really great. You can find much of that information in the DSCSA webpage. And we know that we're going to be putting recordings of today and copies of these slides up for you to be able to find all this information on our public meeting page soon after the meeting. Next slide, please. You can also submit comments either electronically or as written comments to the docket noted on this slide by January 18th, 2022. And we encourage you to continue submitting your comments. Thanks to all of those that have already taken the time to do this. Specific instructions on how to submit your comments can be found in the Federal Register notice so that you can find out, and you can find that also on our other meeting webpage. We look forward to hearing from you and taking into consideration your input as we move forward with implementing the enhanced drug distribution security requirements. And you can continue to look for more information from FDA through our publications of guidances and regulations and additional public meetings and other conferences. We look to this continued engagement to make sure that we are implementing a system that works for all of us. Thanks again for this very informative meeting. Have a good evening and a great holiday season. Goodbye.